7 YouTubers in one EWS race with only one winner. Who do I think it's gonna be? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Josh here again with Daily Mountain Bike Rider, and if you haven't figured out by now, I have entered a race at Whistler called the EWS 100 along with 6 of my fellow YouTubers, and it's gonna be one heck of a time. Now, I realize going into this, some of you don't really realize what's going on. Number 1, what is an EWS? This is the Enduro World Series. This is where the world's best mountain bike enduro racers compete to figure out who's the best of them all. Now the cool part about this is there is also options called the EWS 80 and the EWS 100. These are 2 options for people who aren't professionals but still want to try out an Enduro World Series course. The 80 is 80% of the course, and then for those who just have a couple of screws loose, there's the EWS 100, which is 100% of the course that the pros race, except you're not a pro and you probably shouldn't be racing. Anyway, that's the one that me, along with 7 other YouTubers, signed up for. The other YouTubers include Eric from BC POV, Brian from BKXC, Nick from VanCan, Paul from Paul the Punter, Ryan from the Lone Ranger, and Jordan from Jordan Boostmaster, along with myself, Josh, from Daily Mountain Bike Rider. So the 7 of us dum-dums decided let's all enter this race, compete with one another, and see which YouTuber comes out on top. So there's been a lot of talk. Which YouTuber is going to do the best? Which has the most race experience, the most endurance, and is the best at downhill? Well, I'm here to share with you my predictions, and the race is just 2 days away, so within the next week I hope to get at least one, if not both, videos out from the race day. But first, let's talk about my predictions. Alright, so I have my makeshift table, and I was thinking about how do I separate all of us riders into categories instead of just going 1st through 7th on my predictions. It really comes down to classifications. That's where this comes in. This is a typical standard deck of cards, and I think this is going to help illustrate best how I think people are going to do in the EWS 100. So let's jump into that. I've separated these out into 4 different categories, and these are really 4 different skill sets. And the first one is the ace. The ace is arguably one of the best cards in the deck. An ace in your pocket is somebody who's going to do extremely well. They're well trained, they have all the skills needed in order to get, I would argue, the top 3 in the EWS. The first person that I'm putting down for my prediction is I'm going to predict that Jordan Boostmaster is for sure an ace in this competition. Now, why Jordan? Jordan is phenomenal at downhill. While most of you just see his tricks and going off huge jumps, the dude's fast and he's super familiar with Whistler Bike Park. If I'm looking at all the courses, there's some that are in Whistler Valley that aren't really downhill trails, but based on trails that I've taken Jordan on here in Bellingham and how fast I see him go through the park, I think Jordan is going to do extremely well because he spent so much time going very fast down very steep trails in the park. Next up is this card, the King. Now, the King is not an ace, but the King is still an extremely good rider. This is somebody that I would say is probably going to be for sure in the top 5. This is somebody who's ridden a lot, who has confidence in one of the many areas that involve the EWS. And I think 2 guys stand out for this, but the first one I'm going to talk about is Nick from VanCan. Nick from VanCan is somebody who has much experience in Whistler Bike Park, and Nick is super good at cornering. He'll tell you he's not, but I've spent some time behind the dude, and the dude's really fast. Now, while I know that Nick is going to do very well, I don't think he's going to be quite as good as the aces. I think he's somebody who, depending on the conditions, if there's a crash or not, Nick could make it in the top 3 no problem, but if all things go perfectly, I would put him below somebody like Jordan. Now, the next classification is not as glamorous, but realize something. I've put everybody in the top tier of the deck of playing cards because I really believe all of us are top tier riders. We're not Joeys, we're not new, we can hold our own on almost any trail at Whistler, so I think we're all going to do well. But the next classification is the Jack. Now, the Jack obviously comes beneath the Ace and the King, but they're still royalty, and I would argue that anybody that I classify as a Jack is somebody who is on track to be a king and is a good rider and is going to do well. I think all of our times are going to be pretty close. The first person that I'm going to say is going to be a Jack is my dear friend, Paul the Punter. Now, Paul is a very good rider, but Paul is a wise rider, and I say that not tongue in cheek. Paul is cautious, he takes his time. Paul is not somebody who's going to go pedal to the metal and put his body on the line. He's going to be calculated. And because of that, I know Paul's going to do very well in the Whistler Bike Park because he spent a lot of time there. But I feel like on the more gnarly and technical stuff, Paul's going to be pulling those brakes a little bit. So I'm gonna say that Paul is probably, once again, my friend, going to be in the bottom 4 positions. Now, knowing that there's a lot of variables in this, Paul could make his way up to the top 3, no problem. It all depends on who can have clean runs and do a good job over the whole distance of the course. Next person is a repeat category. It's another ace, and this belongs to my buddy BC POV Eric. Eric has a ton of enduro training. This guy's been in so many enduro races. He's an amazing rider, and not only that, but Eric is really a jack of all trades. He'll tell you that jumping isn't his best suit, but the best part about EWS racing is we're not really doing any jumping. Eric excels in the super technical, super steep and janky and weird turns, and I think that makes him a shoo-in for the top 3. Where Jordan has the downhill ability to just go as fast as he can in the bike park, I think Eric's technical ability is gonna help him shine outside the bike park, and he's gonna hold his own in the bike park. So for sure, Jordan and Eric are gonna be in the top 3. Next up, we got another Jack. There's only 3 of us left. Me, the Lone Ranger Ryan, and BKXC. For the Jack, I'm gonna give this one to the Lone Ranger. Now, once again, Ryan is a dear friend. This is not an insult to Ryan. Ryan is a very good rider. Ryan holds his own in the bike park. All these guys have ridden the bike park more than I have, but I've seen Ryan on really steep double black diamonds, which is what we're gonna be riding, definitely have some caution and hesitation. Now, unlike Paul, Ryan has, a wife and 2 kids, and his whole career is YouTube like Paul, and so these guys realize, hey, we've gotta make sure we're healthy. I think Ryan's going to do well, but I don't think he's going to do well as the kings and the aces. So I'm gonna put him next to Paul the punter, and don't worry, I'm gonna put these in order just for fun of my predictions. But for right now, I'm gonna put Ryan as a jack in the bottom 4. All right, I'm gonna save myself for the end, so the last YouTuber is BKXC. Is he a jack, a king, or an ace? This one for me was tough, but I put Brian at the king. Now, as we all know, Brian does not love jumps so much, but he's an excellent rider. I've ridden with Brian, and he is extremely fast. He will tell you he's an underdog, but he is not. And the biggest thing Brian has is he is in great physical shape. Him and Paul did the BC bike race, which is a super long cross-country race. Both of them got in great fitness. Paul has told me that he's not feeling his fitness as much, but I know it's gonna come out in a sleeper mode. But Brian's somebody who is always staying active, always up for endurance, and I think with how much this dude rides, if he's not in the top 5 or top 3, I'm going to be shocked. I don't think he has as much as the EWS practice and the super duper gnarly trails that Eric does. Brian has a lot though, probably, I might argue second. But I still think he's going to do extremely well. So I put Brian as a king. That leaves just me. Jack, king, ace. Where do I put myself? Interesting, I'm gonna kind of throw a curveball in here and let me explain. I have a new category for myself, and that is the Joker. Now, here's what's interesting about the Joker. Going into this race, I was actually not gonna do any practice. It just didn't work out with my schedule, and so I was going to go into the entire EWS race blind except for the runs that I've done in the Whistler Bike Park. But luckily for me, I'm actually gonna be able to practice 3 of the stages, still going into 3 of them blind. That makes me kind of a wild card. I could do well. I'm pretty good at going fast in the park, not as fast as Nick is, or Jordan Boostmaster, or BC POV, but I am comfortable in the steep stuff. Yeah, I don't go very fast. I'm a little more of a cautious rider in general, believe it or not, like Ryan and Paul. So really, I put myself as a Joker because I think it really all depends on the racing conditions. If it's rainy and the trail conditions aren't good, I might put myself in the king area. But if it's perfect conditions, I'd probably put myself more towards the jacks. So I think I'm a Joker in the sense of not pre-riding 3 of the trails, really just going in to do the best I can. I think, personally, I could end up in the top 3, probably 3rd. Or I could end up in 7th, very easily, because of a crash or just being me. And so I don't know where I'm gonna land. So what I'm gonna do is put myself right here in the middle between Jack and King. I think if everything goes really well for me, I'll be in the realm of these guys, but will not be in the top 2. Now, enough talking about categories. Let me give you guys my predictions of the race, and I'm gonna give you 2 predictions. The first is my prediction of perfect conditions. If conditions are perfect, if there is no rain and nobody falls and there's no curveballs and no bike issues, if everybody has a perfect race, here's the standings I'm going to give. Let's start with last place. I am going to put in last place my dear friend, Paul the Puncher. Once again, I love Paul. This is not a diss on him, but I think his calculation and his keeping calm is going to put him in the end. Paul would rather come out not hurt than going for broke, so I'm going to put Paul in 7th place. Somebody has to have it. Paul's got a great attitude. He'll do great. Next up, in 6th place, I'm going to put Ryan the Lone Ranger. I think Ryan's going to do really well in the bike park. I think he's going to go a little slower outside the bike park. I haven't practiced with these guys yet, but I'm going to say Ryan gets 6th. Next up, I'm going to put myself. I'm going to say I'm going to get 5th. Once again, perfect conditions. I think because I haven't pre-ridden 3 of the courses, top of the world, I'm not as worried out. The other 2 I'm pretty nervous about, so I'm going to put myself in 5th. Next up for the king, I'm going to say BKXC gets 4th place. Based on where Nick and Jordan and Eric live and where they've ridden a ton, I think Brian has a disadvantage for the amount of NAR and PNW / lower Canadian mainland mountain area. So I'm going to put Brian in 4th place. For 3rd, for sure goes to Nick from Bancan. I think Nick is a sleeper. I think Nick has the least amount of subscribers out of all of us, but he's a really good rider. He can do tricks from his BMX background, and Nick is adaptable. So I'm going to put him in 3rd place. So who's it going to be? Jordan or Eric? For 2nd place, I'm going to put Eric from BC POV. Eric is an extremely good rider. He's well-rounded. And if nothing goes wrong, I think Eric is going to be in 2nd, and I'm going to put Jordan in at 1st. Realize something. An EWS race is entirely based around time. So you're looking at your cumulative time of all the courses. I think Jordan, without a doubt, is going to get 1st place on the biggest run, which is top of the world all the way to the bottom of the Whistler Bike Park. That is a 25-minute stage, and Jordan's speed over that long distance I think is going to shave off at least a minute or 2, which on shorter stages is going to wreck the rest of us. So Jordan I'm going to say is 1st, Eric 2nd, Nick from Bancan, Brian BKXC, me in 5th, my friend Lone Ranger Ryan, and then Paul the Puncher. Now here's where things get interesting. This is not going to be a perfect race. I don't think there's going to be perfect conditions. People are going to fall, and I think there's going to be mechanicals. So who do I think is going to win? Well, let's do one more prediction, but this is where I think the actual results are going to be. And if I get this right, I'm buying a lottery ticket because that would be pretty impressive. First up, putting Paul the Puncher back at last place. I'm sorry, Paul. Once again, I still love you. Paul has told me that he really wants to stay healthy for this race, so I have a feeling he's going to take it easy and get 7th. And you know what, Paul? You're such a good guy. It's going to make us all feel really good about ourselves, but you're a great rider still. Next up, 6th place. This is where things get interesting. I think I'm still going to say the Lone Ranger. I think Ryan's going to do well, but I feel like Ryan might crash like the rest of us on a tough technical area. So I'm going to put him in 6th place. Next up, this is where things get interesting. I have a feeling out of these top 4, somebody's going to have an accident or a mechanical that is going to make their race hurt really badly. And believe it or not, my prediction is Jordan is going to be in 5th place. Now hear me out. Jordan, phenomenal rider, super fast, but Jordan gives it everything he has. And I think that Jordan's risk factor is bigger than the rest of us. So I'm going to put Jordan in 5th place, and I might even argue that he might be down here at the bottom because he's going to go so full bore that he's going to put himself in danger. So Jordan, believe it or not, I'm going to put you at 5th. No disrespect, just my honest opinion. I'm going to put myself in 4th, right in the middle. I feel like that's how I'm going to do. Not as good as I would like to do. I feel like I could compete with all these guys if I really practiced really hard. But knowing me, I crash during enduros. Usually I have a mechanical. Nothing ever goes right for me. I haven't done that much enduro training. And the biggest thing, I've ridden the park the least out of all these guys. So I'm putting myself in the middle, feeling like I'm going to have maybe 1 or 2 little crashes, but hold my own and be in the middle. Next up, 3rd place. I'm going to give 3rd place to Brian. I think Brian's endurance is going to shine through. His strength on the long phases are going to get him 3rd. So it comes down to Eric and Nick from Bancan. I'm going to put Nick in 2nd place. I think he's going to do really well, but I think Eric's experience and expertise puts him up at the 1st place spot. So Eric, Nick from Bancan, BKXC, myself, Jordan Boostmaster. That's ridiculous. I really think I'm going to beat Jordan. Then we're gonna have Lone Ranger and Paul the Puncher. Once again, this is all fun and games, and this is what I love about racing. We can make all the predictions we want, we can talk all the game we want, but one mechanical or one bad crash, we don't want those to happen, can put any of us out of the race, and it could be anybody's game. And mark my words, if Paul ends up being in first place with Ryan in second, and Jordan in third, and me in last, and then Brian in second to last, and then Eric in third to last, and Nick in fourth, like, literally, you could mix these up, put these out on the table, and I guarantee that could be exactly how the race ends. All right, that about wraps up this video, but do me and everybody else watching a huge favor and put your predictions down below on how you think the standings are gonna go. I'll post a thing that you can copy and paste and add in who you think is going to win on my predictions, and please let us know. I think it's gonna be interesting for all of us YouTubers. And you fellow YouTubers watching this, because I know all of you who are racing are definitely gonna watch this because you wanna know what I think. Once again, I love you guys. Leave your predictions down below. If you are so inclined, I don't think anyone's feelings are gonna get hurt. Any of us, if you put us at last, okay, maybe some of us might get a little mad, me included, but let us know what you think. I think it's gonna be interesting, and it's all in good fun, and at the end of the day, it's anybody's chance. All right, that about wraps up this video. Don't spend too much time watching these videos and me talk about the EWS, but get out there, ride your bike, and make sure you do it every day.